All right, so we're talking about Main Street businesses, mostly the south side of Maine, I think. And Mary French has had a business there for as long as I've been around, I think.
Too long.
So I'm going to turn it over to her, and then I'll pick up. Things start to sag.
All right.
We'll go from there.
Things start to sag, you better pick them up. Carol Shaw asked me to do this. I don't know why. I am not a speaker. Anyway, I'll start off with where I know first and where I am now. And that is this building right here, which was Shear's department store.
Was it a department store or was it a catalog store?
It was a department store. They had clothing. And that's where my father bought this building in 72 or 73. I'm not real sure when. And we moved in there in 69 for Kaufman Fisher's, which was also a department store, kind of a junior department store. You might say. Now well, the flood kind of took us out in 85, plus other ththings took us out, like Walmart department store and Kmart department
You're
store.
talking about 1985.
85's when we had the big flood.
1985.
1985, yes, sir. November the 4th, yes. Jane remembers that well, don't you? Anyway, this store is now Hampshire County Helping Hands, which I'm still there. I'm feeling like I'm attached to that building. I manage that store there now with my husband's help, which I couldn't do without him. And then this building right here is our equipment building. We have medical equipment in there that we loan out to people who need wheelchairs, crutches, all that stuff. Bedside potties and what have you. Crutches, walkers, all that kind of stuff, canes. Anyway, so my husband and I own these two buildings right here, plus the empty lot that is beside of Hills. That also goes with these two buildings.
And the Hills own the Hill building?
The Hills own the Hill building. We own all the way around the Hill building, the parking lot plus these two buildings. Now the National building, which is right there on the corner, which Anderson's has now, this building right here. This is the National building. The First National Bank had that bank building built 1911. 1911. Okay. They started out in the Wardman building, which was up in the next block where the Bank of Romney is now, until this building was finished for them to move into. And on down beside of the National building used to be Abel's Jewelry, which now is Anderson's Jewelry. Some of you all know this. Beside of Abe's Jewelry was a meat shop. What was the meat shop?
Mox.
Mox, was it Mox Meat? Okay, Mox Meat was in there, but
Yeah,
there
it
was a
Well, the credit union
thing,
is-
but it's where Federal Credit is now. That's where it was. Yeah, Anderson is in both of those, where Abe's Jewelry and Mox Meat was. And then the next one is this store right here, right in here is where Mox Meat was. Which Anderson owns both of those now. And then this building is where are we now? I gotta find all my pictures.
Mary French, let me ask you, it says Shears there. They owned that building before you
They owned that building
and sold it to you.
sold it to my dad, Bill Nelson. They sold it to him. We rented it from them for a couple of years. And then Dad bought the building, and we paid him rent there. Then when he passed away, now it's my building, so. Where do we go from here? We're on down the street, or up the street. I was amazed at this picture right here. I did not know that was a Gulf service station right there on the corner.
Oh,
I did not know that. I did not know that.
Yeah, it was Pal's Motor Company.
It was what?
Pal's Motor Company.
Pal's Motor? Wasn't Pal's Motor down?
No, this,
Powell's Motor, I think, was where was the Kirkendall building, the front of the Kirkendall building. It's vacant now, and the restaurant was in there.
This?
to him, she moved it.
Okay.
And what years would that Gulf station have been there? What years?
Well, this picture's dated 1940.
Well, Pal's Motor,
Powell
Pal's
owned
Motor
that, I
Company.
think.
I'm not that old. I'm getting there, but I'm not that old.
You're 20.
Cars look like the 30s.
Mr. Powell did own it, right?
Yes, Mr. Powell owned that building.
But wasn't there a Powell garage
That
down
was-
behind
that was
what's
his
Clem's
garage.
station now?
That was a different Powell.
Was that a different Powell?
C.J. Powell had the Ford Motor Company.
Okay,
And I think about 1940, he got a job down in Charleston for the government.
okay.
And he moved his family down there. He owned a big house up on the, and he's far chief, he started a car company. He's quite a pin around Romney, quite, in fact, he ran the car company.
Was it his house right up here behind Sheets?
Yes, right.
That's-
Was that the same
Yeah.
Powell?
Yeah, that was Wanda's dad.
Yeah, I knew who Wanda, yeah, I knew Wanda
His
Powell.
father,
Her
yeah.
father.
Is that where the all cars are now?
Yeah.
Jim?
Yeah, yeah, that's where the all cars are now.
Yeah, they had a big family and they moved to Charleston.
Okay.
And
I thought Powell's had always been here. I thought Powell's had always been here. They moved away?
they were in Charleston for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, the Powell were talking about moving to
Because
Charleston.
Wanda Powell was the home economics teacher at Romney High School. She was my teacher.
And then Mr. Powell, her brother was circuit clerk.
Right.
For-
There's a
And
lot of-
his wife Joanne taught school too, didn't she? Bob Powell.
Yeah, Joanne
Bob
Powell
Powell, that's his father.
taught out the grade school.
Bob Powell was, C.J. Powell was Bob's father.
Was there June? Yes.
What's that?
Was there June Powell?
I've only been here since 2011, so see, I don't know that.
Yeah, this is Powell. We owe them.
Joanne Powell, but I don't remember Judy.
They're kind of normal spelling.
Yes, yes.
Do you remember when Sanders took over the Powell's, or was it Sanders before Powell's?
Well-
Because down here,
See, this says
we have
Sanders.
a picture in that same location.
When Powell moved to Charleston, he sold it to Grady Sanders down here. And Grady had it for about a year, and he didn't make out. He left. And then Bob took it over, and he was in the service, and he ran it for a couple of years. And I think then that's when it moved up the road. I mean, he sold it.
Okay. Okay. So many of these buildings have changed hands so many times, they really have. I didn't realize the Hampshire Review used to be down in what we have. That's our equipment building now. That started out as the Hampshire Review. And then they moved up to the Bank of Romney building, and now they're back down the street
Yeah.
in what used to be Hampshire Pharmacy, which I think wasn't Hartwell's in there as a pharmacist. Was Gaynor. Was Gaynor's down there? Was that Gaynor's
That
in there
was
one
Gainer's
time?
Pharmacy.
No, Gainers was where Hills.
Gainer's had both of them.
Okay, I thought so.
Hartwell, wasn't that the old AMP where Hartwell's was?
AMP used to be in there where Hartwell's was, yes. Also Carol's Variety. Here's Carol's Variety. They used to be, wasn't that a Bain? With Carol Bain, didn't she own that? Wasn't that Carol's Variety? I think, or is this, no, this is the, okay, Carol's Variety was where this was. There, yes.
Actually, Carol was a
First it was
magician.
Ebert's
Yeah,
Five.
Ebert's Five and Dime.
Did y'all remember Mr. Carroll was a,
Music, he had his magic
he had a
shop
magic
upstairs.
shop upstairs,
That's right, he did.
and he was something else.
Ebert's Five and Dime was there before Carol's.
Right, yes, it was. Yes, it was. You all know more about what was in some of these buildings than I do, really. As I say, I don't know why I got this job, but anyway, here I am.
You're doing fine.
There's 2 barber shops in here too, below. What? Where Hills is now, I think that was a barber shop, and then there was a colored barber shop that was in that empty space, that empty lot there.
No, the colored barber shop was in the Cornwall building.
Where was?
That's the Hill building now.
Okay, okay.
That used to
Wasn't there
be-
2 barber shops there together
Well,
though?
there's one across the street right next to the Carlton Restaurant.
Okay,
Old Lewis had that.
Yeah.
And then Van Fleet's had,
Well, Van Fleet's, that's right, they were down.
Van Fleet's
you're
was
right,
in
where
there.
that vacant lot was. Yeah, they had
Okay,
The
I
frame
thought so.
building in there, Van Fleet had it.
Okay,
You're
I
right.
thought so.
A lot of barber shops.
Yeah, there were a lot of barber shops. Now they're all beauty parlors. All the men go to the beauty parlors, they don't go to barber shops anymore.
No dye, where else can we see?
Yeah. Okay, where are we? We're down and then the next was Butch's Meat Market, Stanquish's Meat Market. The next building beside of that was where A&P used to be. Do you have a picture of that? You get your notes out.
There is a picture of it on Main Street.
Is there?
I just have to get my boundaries. I have it on there. We'll find it in a minute. I saw it a while ago.
I thought I did
That's the
too.
other side.
That's the other side.
That's the other side. It's on there.
and Mary French, there
Here it
had
is.
been a Greek family here that had a restaurant right there about the Butch's Meat Market was.
Yes.
Oh, really?
And then there was a restaurant before that even.
I was looking
It was
for it.
actually called the New York Restaurant.
Okay,
There's a
that's what I was
picture of it
looking
there.
for.
1937.
I saw that picture, but did you have it in
It was called the New York
New
Restaurant.
York restaurant? Yeah. Is that where Butch's was? Butch's Meat Market?
I have Butchmore.
Or Stanquish? What?
Had to have been there.
It had to be.
I have Butch's Belmar Realty. Anybody remember that?
No.
For a while? Belmar Realty.
I don't remember
Age
Belmar
Jewelry.
Realty at all.
And that
Well,
block.
I built that for at one time.
Hapley's, later J.C.
There used to be a lot of real estate offices in this town. There were a lot. Yeah. Used to be a lot of real estate offices. And Norwood was down.
Kelvinator. Were you Kelvinator? Kelvinator Appliances.
Calvin Air. What, you mean,
Yeah, you
Well,
had the yeah,
it started out at Crosley back in 1930.
but where was it? Where was it?
It was the vacant lot, where the vacant lot is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember your dad having it down
Well-
along that little street as you
Here
go
where the
down.
post office.
Marshall.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, that's
yeah.
when the-
I remember him having it down there. And didn't Ada Shear
Yeah.
have a little shop down along there too?
After Dave died.
After Dave died? Okay.
She had that sort of dress shop there.
Yeah, she did.
That was
Yeah.
in the old racing building.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
back where the funeral parlor used to be, or the. used to be
But
a
Dave
funeral.
Shear was the mayor of this town for a long time. Yeah, now we have our new mayor back here. Done with a thing like Dave. Performs better than Dave did too. We'll keep her. So, Anybody else have any other comments on buildings? I got my start up here in Clarence Wilford's real estate office was in the upper part, right beside the Hauser building, Footers Cleaners. That was Clarence Wilford's real estate office. I worked in, that's the reason I know there was a lot of real estate offices in town. That's because that's where I worked. That was my first job in Romney, was working there.
Well, I'll read that one here about
Okay.
1920.
Go ahead.
I just read it today. This is from out of this is the November 30th, 1927. Big fire wipes out 5 business places. And this is the other half of the block from where the Hampshire Review is located now. It says, Frame District on Main Street wiped out by flames Saturday night. Romney suffered the largest and probably most expensive fire in its existence Saturday night beginning at 11:15. Originated in the kitchen of the apartment over the Atlantic and Pacific Tea Store, the A&P, from an oil stove which is supposed to have exploded, although it is somewhat uncertain, but it is known to have started in that room. Located as it was in the center of several frame structures and having gained considerable headway before water could be thrown on it, it seemed certain that the whole section of town would be burned. The flames at once communicated with the building of the Hampshire Motor Company owned by J.D. Christopher. Anybody remember that?
I remember J.D. Christopher,
Yeah,
but he had the building that Ralph Haynes has his office in now. That was-
across the street.
That was it, that's it, up in there, across the street. Well,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
right behind the,
Which was general furnishing store of Kaufman and Fisher on the west, and the pool room and restaurant owned by Edward Oates. I've never even heard of that guy. On the east owned by Nathan Shear, which were soon ablaze. The town water system, being low connection, was made with the state system so that there was ample supply of water. So we had 2 separate water supplies, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
What year was this?
27.
20, okay.
yeah,
A telephone message to Kaiser brought a fire engine from that place, which was soon in action. This, together with the fact that the night was calm with little, if any, wind, enabled the firefighters to bring the flames under control before the former law office building of J.S. Zimmerman was reached, and that, together with the Mayfair Restaurant, Singleton's Barber Shop, all 1-story buildings, W.E. Beery's Jewelry Store, Shears Clothing, C.A. Austin's Restaurant, and the First National Bank. Now, I think that C.A. Austin's Restaurant is
It was where
Patty Anderson is.
Little jewelry store.
Right. That's, Uncle Bill talked about that, because they had good seafood, he told me.
They said the best oyster stew anybody ever had.
That's what Uncle Bill said. Yeah. And I never even heard C.A. Austin.
Yeah,
You heard that? You
They
heard
lived
that?
in the house, and maybe Ralph Haynes, there were.
Oh, okay.
There were 2, Austins lived in one of them. and they
let
just said it was the other.
me say something about
Sure.
that. I can remember in 1927, I didn't know it was 27, but I remember my dad got me in the truck Sunday morning. I didn't know it was Sunday morning at the time, but it was in the morning, and took me up the street, and it was cold as the dickens, and he had an old Model T Ford with glass sides, and a big blanket over everybody, and he's driving up the streets, and he's bumping over fire hose, that's frozen solid, and it's all strung around all over the road, and it was that far,
Yeah.
and,
Wow. And you were there.
and I was there.
It had it all burned, was it?
And I didn't know it at the time. Later on, we used to go up to town and park the car and listen to the band. They had a band up at the courthouse every Saturday night, and the Romney band played there. And everybody went up, almost the whole town. And Some people would even take their car up in the afternoon and park it so they'd have places to sit.
Oh, my
Anyway,
God.
this time that I can remember, I don't know how old I was, but all of us three kids were in the car, and A&P was in the old Wordman building.
Okay.
So it had to be around 29 or 30 then, because that's probably where the A&P went after they burned out. And they was up there for, I don't know how long,
Yeah.
but I know that the A&P was up there.
I didn't know
Kind of
that.
all makes sense
Um,
now.
Let's see, First National Bank, the other buildings in that block were practically undamaged except for the rear of the Shear building, which I guess is where you are
Which
now,
one?
Hale Helping Hands is,
Yeah.
and the Mayfair Restaurant, which were scorched. Another fire engine from Piedmont arrived shortly after the one from Kaiser, but as the fire was then under control, it was not put into action. It's taken a while for a fire engine to get from Kaiser over to here in those days.
I have heard
Yeah.
that the Shears, old man Shears, Dave Shears' father,
Nathan.
had a junkyard in behind the building along there someplace. And he collected junk, and that's how he started out. And that could be before they even built that Shears building. It could have been someplace else.
Across the street was a large plate glass front of the Romney Mercantile Store was shattered by the heat, as much of the glass in the fronts of the Opera House lobby, Emmerich's Bakery, J.B. Seville's store, and some in the B.T. Racy storefront. So I don't,
So that went clear across the street to
yeah,
those
that whole
buildings
corner
over
there. Yes, sir.
Clothing store, you saying S-H-E-R-S or H-E-A-R-S? I was
S-H-E-A-R-S.
wondering if it was
It's Shear, not Sears.
Sears and
Yeah.
Roebuck, you know?
No.
Right,
No.
no.
They
Cheers.
came from Russia.
They came from Russia. They were a Jewish family. His, actually his naturalization papers are there's only two naturalization papers in our courthouse. It's Mayor Shear's family and Mike Kearns' grandfather from Ireland are the only two. They're down in the basement in the vault. I found them one weekend 100 years ago when they locked me in there. The telephone and the electric wires running across the streets in front of the burning buildings were ruined, and a force of hands was at work Sunday replacing them. The building in the rear of the old Parker House was afire several times, and several small buildings in the rear of the burning ones were destroyed. Our local boys worked manfully, not only in fighting the flames, but removing the goods from the building endangered by the fire, as all those were burned. The fire company from our neighboring city of Kaiser won praise not only by their quick run here, but by their energetic and competent handling of the situation after they arrived. The same would apply to Piedmont Company had it gotten into action, but no one expected anything less from them. They are our intimate and fast friends in any emergency. Now, this last paragraph is really cool. The ground on which all of these burned buildings stood belongs to the Wendell estate. Anybody? The owners living in New York City. They absolutely refuse to sell the land, and likewise, they will not build on it. The land is leased for a period of only 5 years to different persons, so this explains why no substantial structures have ever been built there. Located as it is in the business center of the town, and the only lots available for business purposes, yet nothing has ever been done in the way of substantial building, and that section, because no one will risk much money on a lot, which he may have to vacate in 5 years. Nearly every town has its back sets in the way of building quarters, and the Wendell property is Romney's eyesore. I thought that was like pretty heavy duty.
That stings.
Yeah.
That hurts.
They must
Yeah.
have
So,
rebuilt and-
I don't know when the Wendell family, that's a Steve Moreland question, I'll stick him on that. And he can find out when that happened.
If they had to wait 5 years, maybe it was 32, and then they
Yeah.
rebuilt.
Yeah, or like Dot said, when Mr. Wendell maybe died,
He might
had no
not have
heirs,
heirs.
and they sold it, so.
But I don't understand, because we know the Review was built in 1895 on that lot, and if they owned all those, how was that? I mean, this fire was when, 1927, and he
Yeah.
wouldn't let anyone rebuild. But
Well, the review building was in
1895.
the other half of the block, right?
The review building was right here.
Yeah, and we're talking about everything
From on down.
west of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was
Down?
thinking
Yeah.
on.
Are you talking about the national, did the national building get?
No.
They didn't get,
It
they
said,
weren't in that far.
So it was from there on down.
Flags under control, together with the Mayfair Restaurant, Singleton's Barber Shop, which was in that, where was the barber shop? The colored barber
It was
shop?
where the Cornwall building was.
Right.
I think. So-
All one-story building, the jewelry store, Shears Clothing Store, CA Restaurants, CA Austin's Restaurant.
They were all
So that
brick.
half the block never got
They
hurt.
were all brick buildings, whereas those others were framed.
The barber shops were framed, weren't they?
Well, one was, but where Singleton's was, it was where Scott Hill is, John Scott Hill are now. That was brick.
That's brick, yeah, that's brick.
So most.
But the next building down, which was, I thought the barber shop, was a frame
There were
building.
two buildings, two barber shops.
That's why I was right, sitting right there side by side, weren't
And
they?
it was framed.
Okay.
Here it says barber shop ran by African Americans Bob Shingleton and Bill Jackson. And I found this old ad in a book, I don't remember where, A.W. Van Fleet Barber Shop, Romney.
Yeah.
So we had 3. Where'd you get your hair cut, Norwood?
No Lewis, no
Singleton's
Lewis,
barber
and
shop.
Shingleton's.
Van Fleet and Singleton and Johnson.
It's Bob Jackson and the Shingleton. They lived,
And
they
then no
lived
Lewis.
across the street from each other at the end of Rosemary Lane, last 2 houses on Rosemary Lane.
Okay.
They lived across from each other.
Well, Mary French, you may know
Neither
this.
of them had 8 children.
The, where the old Kaufman Fisher that burned in 1927, they put another one up there, didn't they? Another wooden structure?
I
Where
think
that
that
Kaufman
is
Fisher-
something.
And then it burned when?
I think they're early 60s is when
Yeah, because it was very
burned.
cold that night.
And Western
too.
Auto was right beside us.
Right. It was really cold that night too, because it was icicles.
It was
and
cold.
everything.
Yeah, I remember coming to the stoplight that next morning of that fire, and water was frozen on the streets. It
Yeah.
was a mess, it
So it
really
was the same
was.
type of thing that happened in 1927.
Yeah. And then Kaufman Fisher's rebuilt
Right.
back there
And I guess on the same place.
on the same corner. And then that's when John came to Romney in 1967 as manager of that Kaufman Fisher's. He was manager in Piedmont. And that store closed, and he came over here as manager of Kaufman Fisher's.
What kind of a store was it?
It was a junior department store, small, ladies' clothing, men's clothing, babies.
Everything.
Kaufman Fisher's, yeah, we had everything. Baby department was big. But then R.E. Powell Company bought out the Kaufman Fisher stores. And then they took bankruptcy. And that's when we bought the one Kaufman Fisher store in Moorfield. And we went up there, we worked up there, still lived here, but worked up there in the Kaufman Fisher store. And then in 1969, we reopened in the Shear Building as Kaufman Fisher's then, there.
I heard someone tell someone that Ronnie had 2 classes of stores, upper class and lower class, and Kaufman Fisher's was upper class. That was the half price store.
Yeah, HB.
HB, yeah.
Yeah,
Or Denny, I guess it was Denny's after that?
it was Denny's after that.
Yeah.
They were across, the HB store was across catty corner from Kaufman Fisher's,
building.
where the Advanced Auto is now.
Right.
That's where they were. Yeah.
The one story I remember about Kaufman Fisher's, and I'm sure there's 100 of them,
No,
like this, because my ex-wife used to work for Mary French down there, Beth, and she would say, well, Nancy Feller at the courthouse would call down when Marshall, you all remember Marshall who worked at the courthouse, if he needed clothes, then she would call down to Mary French to the store and say, I'm going to send Marshall down for two pair of jeans and 2 flannel shirts.
Yeah.
And then she would say, send the bill, don't give him any money and don't give him the bill. And then Nancy would pay for it out of Marshall's funds,
Oh,
because he couldn't be trusted.
No, she kept
He would
track
go
of
by-
his money.
Yeah, exactly, she
Yeah.
kept track of his money, but, and I'm sure there's, like I said, 100 other stores like that.
Yeah.
I know when Teresa was little, and I would come into your store, and I babysat Elena Friera, Dr. Friera's daughter, and I know you had a men's towel rack, because they would spin it. And I would be like, we are going to get thrown out of here, girl, stop it. It would go round and round. And
I still
Teresa
have that
and
towel
Elena, do you really? They would spin
Would you
it
like
in
to have it?
that
I'd
thing.
like to get rid of it.
No. Teresa might. We might ask Teresa if she'd like to have it. But I would go, girls, and I'd give them a speech before we go in. You don't do this in stores. And just as soon as I turned my back, towel rack would go.
I didn't know you
And
could
Frances
use that.
Buckby
Oh, yeah.
worked for you.
And Helen
Frances-
Holmes.
And Helen Cox, who was my neighbor in Springfield, and went to church with her as a young child. And she was like, God, you need to, well, she called me Dorothy, because from that end of the town, I was Dorothy. And she would say, now you must keep those girls under control. And I go, I'm trying, but I'm trying to buy too.
That was Francis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, she knew me well enough to say that.
Yeah.
She didn't hurt my feelings.
Yeah, and then her husband was sheriff for how many years? Here.
Yeah, you had some good employees.
Chick Buckby. Yeah. Well, then Francis used to work for Hackley's. Now Hackley's used to be right beside of what was Kaufman Fisher's downtown, down the corner.
Orville Umston, is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that was Hackley's.
Orville
Do you have
graduated
a
from the
picture of
School for the
Hackley's?
Blind, which I did not know.
He what?
He graduated from the School for the Blind. He was in the same class as Selden Brandon.
Now, this is a tale on him. He used to weigh out your candy or your meat or whatever, and he had a lead in his tie, and he'd lay that. He'd lay that tie on the scales.
Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
So he didn't use his thumb, huh?
No, he
Smarter
laid,
than that.
he always laid his tie, he always had a shirt and tie on, and there was weight in that tie, and he laid that tie on the scale.
You know, Molly Moss's grandmother used, anybody who had extra eggs or anything, they could take them there and sell them.
Right.
And one day her grandmother took eggs in, that was fine, because she often did, but he called and he said, some lady bought your eggs and they were hard-boiled. And she had hard-boiled eggs in the refrigerator, yeah, there's the tape, but
And she brought the horse.
she took the hard-boiled
Sounds like something happened in Mayberry.
Now, my mother used to do the same thing in Springfield. She took her eggs into Walter Grace's store in Springfield, which was also the post office. But anyway, yeah, so I know what you mean about take your eggs in.
Well, it was such a nice store. Why did you decide to sell or close it? The older gentleman that was in here a while ago, he said, what happened to all the small stores? And I said, I really think the mall's opening.
The malls.
But what year did you close?
We closed in 87, I think it was. We closed in 87. And then there was a couple other things in there before we went in, well, J.C. Penney's used to be in the store. You remember J.C. Penney's was in the store? And then, J.C. Penney's catalog, which they used to be in down where Hackley's was. Also, they started out there, and then she wanted a bigger store, so she asked us if she could rent the building from us, so then she moved up there. But yeah, Walmart, Kmart, and the roads got better.
Right.
everybody had cars.
Yeah, it was their fault. They could drive to Cumberland and shop a day, and that used to be my husband's pet peeve, when they would go to Cumberland and couldn't find what they want and come back to the store and right there it was.
Mom used to love to go to Cumberland.
Yeah.
What were the stores there that women?
Rosenbaum.
Rosenbaum.
Peskin's.
Who had the upstairs?
That was
soda?
Peskin's. Well, Rosenbaum's did
Rosenbaum.
too.
That was the treat if I got to go. I got
And
to
they had
go
the little
upstairs.
thing, the pneumatic thing that carried the money.
Yeah, and
Ran
a
across
little
the
colored man who ran the elevator. Up to the second floor, yeah, that was just so cool.
He was Mary Stewart's son.
Oh, really?
Okay, anybody else want to add anything or ask me anything? A lot of these places have changed hands so much.
Well, now, oh yeah, across the street, you've been mostly on the
I've
south
been
side.
mostly on, yeah.
Okay, across the street, between where the old blues store, and which had been originally a theater, there were 2 or 3 little wooden, they may
Well,
have.
Carlton Restaurant was across the street.
Yeah, but where Stickley's Confectionery was.
Right.
Then there was another little store in there, and.
Pioneer
in the
Restaurant,
house, I
Pioneer
know.
Restaurant was in there.
No, this is only down the street a little bit.
I have a note that says a log frame house that Dr. Snyder lived in. Does that sound familiar?
Not that, but I remember going in there, and I think it was Judy Buckby's mother had a little dress shop in there, probably, Judy was probably real little. But there was a fireplace in there, so you could see it had been a house, somebody had lived there. And it had a little tiny upstairs, not unlike the Davis house, but it was white, and it's in some pictures.
Oh, you're on
I have
down.
one of those
Now,
pictures.
if you're at the Madeline Blues store,
Okay,
then Stickley's Confectionery.
okay.
Left.
Then it was right next to it, and then the Carlton Restaurant.
Well, I remember in there with Ralph Haynes.
Well, there was
Well, but now
the
that's on
Carlton,
up, that's on up a little bit.
Carlton Restaurant, and there was a jewelry store, Kate,
Yeah, Kate Mavis.
Mavis.
Kate Mavis
She was
was in
in where
Hampshire.
Carlton was.
Yes, she was for the Carlton.
But there was just the neatest little house there, and you just walked right straight in off the street, no steps or anything, as I remember. And it probably had 2 little rooms downstairs and 2 upstairs. I just don't recall that. But
It might be in this picture right here, Jane.
And there was a mantle there.
See this house right here? You might have to get up and take a look. But in this picture right here, there is a white frame house.
Okay, now.
Well, that's Stickley, so isn't it?
Oh, this is the
Well,
bakery.
maybe it was
there.
converted later.
It might have been.
See, there's a
Emmerich
bakery
Bakery,
there,
does that
but
sound
Stickley's was
familiar?
in here, and
Where
this
is
is part back there. It probably was all that
They're all
same
gone.
house.
It
that
probably
same
was.
house.
That's only one of very
Because
many.
it's maybe 1 or 2 rooms there, but Steve. It's
See, this is the theater here.
Yeah.
Been trying to be.
But this is a bakery. Maybe that was Emmerich's bakery.
It is,
And then there was,
Jane.
see that?
It's Emmerich's.
Is that Emmerich's Bakery? She says that's Emmerich's Bakery.
And then see, there's one up here.
Yeah.
You don't see it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the Carlton. Yeah, they were just right there.
That's
And this is Ralph Haynes. And this is Ralph.
It's quite a
I don't
while.
remember that.
And see, Judy.
In the 30s,
Really?
right next to the same.
I asked her, maybe she.
He said there was a couple of law offices over there next to that bakery.
Yeah.
Well, like Jane said, they kept their car 20 years.
Right.
So
Lots of
Yeah.
times, I mean,
You know.
you're driving old cars.
I think this, we were talking this side of the street over here, I think this is pretty interesting. That's where Seville's law office in that top picture back in the early days, if you want to tell me about that thing.
Just Romney
But
Mercantile. I don't know
Romney
much about it.
Mercantile.
Yeah.
She knows.
Prior to that,
She knows more about
this
that.
building right here was a saddle shop on this west end over here.
I never.
And then this was, they sold soaps and it was like a little store right here. And then later on, it was sold to the Romney Mercantile, and you can see the Romney Mercantile right across here. And they actually delivered by horse and buggy. Later on, there's a picture here where when the automobiles came in, that they used this, and this says Romney Mercantile on it, which I think is really a cool picture. And of course, then later on, the Levings family bought that building and opened the well-known Green Palm Restaurant, and then Royce Seville bought it when they went out of business. I didn't mean to jump in
No,
on
no,
your,
no.
on your
I
thing,
don't know
but
that.
I think that is such a cool transition of seeing that
When it was
building.
built, Dottie?
You know, we were talking about that a while ago. I'm not sure when it was built. I have a plate from Romney Mercantile that was dated 1918, and it was an advertisement, calendar plate, and it's dated 1918, so we know but I don't know about this. I would say pretty early. Do you have any of those pictures, Bonnie?
I don't know that one.
But I think that is one of the cool transitions, just seeing it come down through. And that we're fortunate, looks like the roof was put on, of course, when it became Romney Mercantile, which was, I wish Maurice Seville was here because he really has a lot of information about
Does
that and old pictures.
Yeah.
I guess it was,
It was built in the early 1800s.
what Romney Mercantile sell? Everything?
I would think. I mean, for
Also, and I always wondered, why was it Endless Caverns? Why did they, I have a feeling they must pay to put it on there, like
Sure.
they used to on barns and stuff. Maybe
Yeah.
they came and painted the
Where
building.
was that?
That's one way to get your barn painted.
Yeah, but this was on the, and you know, now we're doing murals in town on buildings, and it's kind of
Where
like,
were the endless caverns?
I don't know.
I don't know where the endless caverns were.
Its caverns are between Winchester and Harrisonburg.
See if it's got an
So you would
address.
have to be coming from the west, headed east, then you would see it.
If you're heading north on 81,
Says New
you can
Market,
see the word
Oh, okay.
on
New
the
Market.
side of the mountain.
is what the
Yeah,
sign
New
says.
Market.
Says
Okay.
New Market,
Well, that would make sense if you're coming from the west, you'd see
Yeah.
the ad
yeah.
Yeah,
and keep on going.
yeah.
And then found into it yet. It was rather more endless.
Yeah.
Is it still open?
I know it's still.
Oh, I think it really is.
Yeah.
Endless caverns.
I've been to Lorraine Caverns, but I've never been to the endless
Yeah,
caverns.
I did too.
There's a whole bunch of them there in the Shenandoah Valley.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, every other,
Half a dozen or so that I think went up.
Shannon, it's
Of course, we have smoke hole
Shenandoah,
up here.
Endless, New Ray.
I suppose it's still open.
Going to Lou Ray, that's where you Well, there's an interesting Dot looked this up today, something that I hadn't even thought of, the history of the Kaufman Fisher store. I had first of all, I had no idea there was a history, but this is the obituary from Eugene Kaufman, who grew up in Davis. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he was well known throughout West Virginia and operated stores in 14 towns in West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and a warehouse in Baltimore. A member of the Lutheran Church, Republican Party, he was a philanthropist. Let's get that one out. As an example, a close friend said last night that during the last year, he gave bonuses of $32,000 to 83 people employed by him. Kaufman Fisher stores are operated in Thomas, Piedmont, Kaiser, Moorfield, Romney, Petersburg, all in West Virginia, Kitzmiller, Westminster, Lonoconee, Pocomoke City, all in Maryland, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and Front Royal, Virginia. And a store was formerly operated in Cumberland. So the guy was quite the entrepreneur, and this is a long detail. I mean, if you're really into it, I'm not going to read this, but it tells about how he got his investment money and everything to get it done. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you to repeat that name again?
Eugene Kaufman.
K-A-U-F-M-A-N?
C-O-F-F, as in Kaufman Fisher.
There was a K-A-U-F-M-A-N in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, Kaufman's, yeah.
Yeah.
Now Fisher was a partner of his.
Yeah, Thomas
Kaufman and
Fisher,
Fisher were two different.
yeah.
Yeah, they were two different guys. And there was a whole chain of them.
I don't know
In
what
about
Fisher-
1910, a year or two before the organization of the corporation, Kaufman and Fisher, as partners, opened a group of branches with stores in Tunnington, Belington, Thomas, Blaine, and Masontown. So they had a whole lot more stores than just those who are listed, and I guess as things changed.
Well, when you got into business, did you have to pay a franchise fee, or how did you get the name Kaufman Fisher?
We bought the name when we
You
bought,
bought
when we
like
bought the
franchise.
franchise, we bought
Okay.
the,
That's pretty much any franchise.
we could use the name, because we
Yeah,
want,
sure, yeah.
the name was known, we didn't want to change the name.
Yeah, this was known.
Yeah, it was not, so we wanted to keep the name, so we,
It sounds like it was
We
like
bought that.
Boscov's or Bon Ton
Yeah.
or, yeah.
Yeah, then we had a carpet store in Moorfield also, which was also the Kaufman Fisher Company.
They sold carpet?
We sold carpet.
And you were the last Coffin Fisher store.
We were the last Kaufman Fisher store.
No.
As they all went out of business.
They all went out of business when we closed it, that finished. And then we reopened one here in Romney, then went into the Shears building.
So, their warehouse was in Baltimore?
Well, I mean, just what it says here.
Uh-huh. Well, that makes sense, because if they sent things by rail,
Yeah.
they would go to AS Thomas
How did you get your deliveries?
and truck.
Truck? Okay, just wondered if the railroad brought anything in.
And we went to New York ourselves and bought for our stores. After we bought the stores, we'd go to New York twice a year and buy the merchandise, and then it was shipped in.
When did it start? When did he start his stores?
About 1910, it says, a year
Okay, so that would
or
be-
two before.
The rails would have been
Uh-huh.
the way to
Yeah, they were good.
get all
Yeah.
this.
And his wife was a dressmaker. Or somebody's wife,
You
Yeah.
remember where he went to all those?
dressmaker.
Is that little house in that picture?
Mrs. Kaufman was learned dressmaking in Kingwood.
Yes, it is.
You know, one of the things that I found recently, and maybe you knew this, Dan, the old theater, it was an opera house first, and then the theater, and then Franklin, it had a bowling alley in it too. And I know the old Moose did, I never knew that,
I remember going to one.
in the old
Oh,
building.
the old Ben Franklin. I mean,
Yes,
They had a bowling alley out there.
yeah,
Where? No, down.
Ben Franklin.
upstairs.
Upstairs in Ben Franklin's store.
I never knew that.
was a
Mrs.
bowling
Blue
alley.
let me go up there once.
Did it look like a bowling
And,
alley?
well, no, it was
I mean, it did.
filled with, God, what I wouldn't give to go up there now.
We're talking about this building right here, that was
Yeah.
the Opera House Theater, and then later the Ben Franklin store. And it had a bowling
Yeah, there was a
alley.
bowling alley.
Balcony, yeah, this was for colored people.
Is that right?
So they had a balcony and colored people sit up there.
Oh, but it was a theater.
Uh-huh.
At least it looks like it's called
This right here, before the motel was where Dorman's.
I remember going to movies in the
It
20s.
looked like it
I
was
see the ones on it. Let me take a picture.
I'll make
I know, it looks like
It used to be a gas station.
Yeah, I remember the day that Mr. Blue had his heart attack. He died in the store.
Did he? Oh,
Yeah, I was coming home from school and walked by the store and the big plate windows. Everybody was gathered around him on the floor. I was probably in 6th grade or something like that, but it's been
You mean Madeline's husband?
Madeline's husband, John, yeah.
I saw him die in the incident down to the high school.
Well, he had a heart attack that day.
Lucy Woods' husband died.
Well, maybe
Oh,
that,
really?
Yeah, because Lucy Woods.
Lucy Woods.
He was working there, I
what
think.
was his, Julian?
Julie.
Yeah, wow. Where'd that come from?
But I think Mr. John,
I thought it was
he was
John.
out making hay.
Well, maybe so.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I thought it had been the Moose Lodge.
I bet they were looking at Hampshire reviews.
Yeah, that's the ticket.
There's Hampshire Reviews.
I was wondering what that is. But
Wealth of information in there,
See,
it
back
really
here,
is.
went into Dr. Christopher's. Yes. Where was he? He lived up here.
I saw my first Technicolor movie in Alpine and Bluebird with Shirley Temple.
Oh,
They
really?
all loved it.
I don't remember the first movie I saw there, but I have no idea.
But Emmett,
It was one down.
Post office.
Yeah, I'm sure mine was too, but I don't remember.
It was the first movie I saw in color.
It says National Farm Loan Association.
Oh, okay.
Well, you want to,
Yeah.
in an hour, and then people can sit and talk.
Sure.
That's basically what we're doing now, so.
That's fine.
I think we'll close our part of it, and then everybody still continue to talk, because there's still a lot of information. If anybody's got questions, yell them out.